And we're back, YouTube. Thanks for joining me, guys. We got a little upgrade since last time we talked. Hope you guys like it. Let me show you what we got. Picked up this double-decker storage container. You guys know I gotta keep it small and cheap, because that's what these videos are about. This channel, whole channel, really, for now, I guess. Cheap aquaponics, low budget. And these type of setups can work for aquarium setups too, as well. But the key factor here is creating the biological filter or biosphere ecosystem that converts fish waste into plant fertilizer. Well, let me show you the upgrades. First off, I got rid of the bubbler, which isn't really a big thing. I could add it back in. It might help, it might hurt it. But what I have now is this small mini pump. It pumps 80 gallons per hour through this tube, this hose, which is about the same size as actually it is the same size as the air hoses for the bubblers. And it pumps it up through this bulkhead that I positioned. It's a 3/4 inch bulkhead, and it runs up, plumbs back over to this side on the top. Now that water cycles from the fish up to this top substrate medium where the plants are positioned. This substrate, I have it positioned in a way where it reaches almost reaches, and in some places it does reach the surface level of the top water level. That creates a filter that traps any waste, fish waste, food waste, or dead plant matter, so that the bacteria that's growing in the substrate, because that's where bacteria likes to grow, breaks it down into usable fertilizer for the plants. As it flows across, it drops back down through that bulkhead that the hose was plumbed through. And I have a solo cup on the outside because it needs the water level to be a little bit higher than the full length of that bulkhead. Originally, I put the red cherry shrimp up here to help break down anything that got cut up here, but they decided to bypass my force field there, I guess, to come down here and feed. That's okay. We'll get some more and put them up here. Doesn't really matter where they are, as long as they're breaking down any type of waste product. Because the smaller it gets broken down, the easier it is for the bacteria to do its job to turn it into the fertilizer for the plants. Not only that, but the way that I have this solo cup positioned on top of the bulkhead, you probably can't see from this angle. Maybe you can. It's a swirl motion. A lot of people use a swirl filter in their aquaponics systems, and it's supposed to break down any solid waste that gets past the filter to help break it down to smaller particles. The smaller the particles, the easier it is for the bacteria to break down and turn into fertilizer for the plants. But let me show you the progress of these plants. You can see this one here is really starting to take off. It's growing its aquaponics roots, hydroponic type roots. as well as his leaf system. Let me show you, go back down in here, position it right. And if anybody's wondering how I cut these holes, you know, most people go out and get a hole saw. I probably could have did that, but trying to create the cheapest way to do this hobby. I used a piece of steel wire coat hanger, heated it up on the stove, traced it out, and that's how these holes were cut. It's also how these holes were drilled in the side of the solo cup. And hot steel just melts right through it. So you can see the leaves are starting to form a little bit more abundant on this one. And this one here was the one that originally didn't sprout. And I planted that one in its place. And it's growing more. Got a couple of brown leaves, it's okay, they're gonna fall off. That's not a big deal. And it's hydroponic roots. They're slowly but surely coming in too. Last time I think you guys saw it, it might have had little tiny prick buds or whatever. But they're taking off. This one is that one that really stood out to me before. Its root system is just going strong. I don't think it's gonna die at all. But those brown roots. You have the aquaponics, hydroponic roots, and then some of the roots that probably were originally from the soil. They usually die off, but it could also still be possibly just be extra soil matter or maybe even dead algae that started to form on it. They're having this kind of green color, and I think it has to do with this setup being in the soil, or not the soil, but in the windowsill. Might be a little algae growing on them, but they still do their job of absorbing the water and the fertilizer waste from the water to help the fish thrive. But his leaves are doing great as well. A lot of photosynthesis taking place on this guy as well as this one. You can see the progress from just last week. Now the progress from this week is not going to be the same as it was in my last video, the difference between that video and the previous one, because if you could remember, that video was taken 2 weeks after the initial setup. So two things were going on. This has a whole additional week of growth, as well as, since this is more recent of a setup, it had to start over its whole biological filtration balance, or balancing. It had to reset itself basically, but it's doing good. It's been going for about 3 days now. I would have did a video originally, but I wanted to make sure that there was some growth before I did, so that way next week I didn't, show it to you and everything was dead. The fish are doing great. They're all happy still. And hopefully soon we'll see some babies, because I believe that girl right there is carrying some. So she might drop some any day now. And you got the anacris in there for them to have a nice hiding place. And there are 2 cherry shrimp. The third one there decided to not make it. I'm gonna have to take him out. This guy, he just let go today. They've been in here for a couple of days, so And it's kind of normal. Then you add new fish, you might lose a couple, but these two are still finding stuff to feed on. So we'll see the progress in a couple weeks. Or maybe a week. If I see enough progress next week, then I'll make another video. But if not, then we'll see one in 2 weeks. Well, let me show you my beta setup. If you can remember last video, we had a male that my females and my back to the roots setup here decided to abuse and beat up. Well, he didn't make it. I guess he was just a little too shredded, too much stress. So we got another one. He's back there. Transparent rainbow fantail. We just set this one up today. And I gave him a little water plant to help him. I'm gonna do a little experimental breeding in this tank. I'm gonna let him build his nest, and these two females that I have in here, I believe they're holding eggs right now, so they're ready to mate. I don't want them to be stressed carrying those eggs, so we'll bring them over, we'll create some baby betas, and we'll have babies everywhere. And, I also picked up a shrimp in it for this tank. You can see him there. He's feeding on something I guess he found. There's one beta, and the other one is right there behind him. One of the females, I presume, is a little bit stressed, so she passed today. There's one Cory cat, and the other one, where'd he go? I just seen him a minute ago. Oh, he's back on this side. There you go. There he is. So everybody's doing pretty good. Like I say, you lose a couple fish sometimes just from setting things up. But once the balance is reached with the ecosystem, the plants are thriving, they're taking off. So there's definitely fertilizer in there. They're working their butts off to clean the water. So I might have to cut back on the feeding on this one. Maybe every other day instead of every day. But everyone's doing well and thriving. Seem to be happy. I put a little piece of money tree leaf in this top. See if I can clone it. We'll see where that goes. And I pulled some substrate out of the top here to prepare it for those fresh herbs that I'm going to plant up here. But the bacteria is doing its job very well in this tank. I'm very happy with this. It balanced out quite quickly. And one thing that I look for in determining that balancing factor is the smell of the water. If you smell a properly set up, maintained aquarium, it smells a lot like fresh potting soil. that would probably be the closest resemblance of a smell that I could call it. And once you have that smell, then you know you're very close to being like spot on with water balance. And larger tanks, like I had in the past, I didn't even need to do nitrite, nitrate, ammonia level checks on it anymore, because once it reaches that balance, I had no problem losing any fish after that. But these smaller ones are kind of hard to get there because anything can throw it off. But a dead anything could spike the ammonia levels in it and cause it to be harmful to the other living fish and organisms in it. So you really have to be on top of it with these smaller tanks. And I would do a water change maybe once a week on these things. Partial water change at least. Because if you change all of the water and wash it out, you don't have any bacteria left in there to bring that balance that the fish need, the life needs. So anyways, that's the progress. Hope you guys enjoy it. And if you have any suggestions or comments, whether they be negative or positive, feel free to leave them. And thanks for watching.